By the time I was released from the hospital, Chris's daughters had officially become my self-appointed caregivers. They abandoned pretty much all after-school social activities during their last 2 years of high school in order to rush home and see to my recovery. And it was a lengthy recovery at that. I was a total mess, not only physically but mentally as well. I was despondent and depressed by the loss of my wife, my best friend, my lover and my soulmate. And with each day that would pass, I'd lose more and more of my desire to go on living. Of course, the doctors had at first prescribed medicine for the physical ailments, which Anya and Noika made sure I took on a daily basis. But then the twins noticed I was sleeping more frequently, and for longer periods. They asked our next-door neighbour, Dr. Shantz, if he could drive them over to speak with my cardiologist, and to do so without letting me know. Gus, being a loyal friend of the family, not only readily agreed to their request, but he also accompanied them to the meeting to confer with the other physician about what regimen of treatment was the optimal one for my condition. On the drive home, the three of them made a pit stop at a local pharmacy to fill my newest and latest prescriptions. While this outpouring of love was admirable, it made me worry that for my two girls it was guilt-driven. I knew Chris's daughters blamed themselves for causing my heart attack, but that wasn't the case. It was how I lost my wife that broke my heart. And I did try to explain that to them, but to no avail. As a result, I not only felt terrible that this pair of vibrant and attractive young ladies were now missing out on some of the best years of their teenage lives, but that I was responsible for saddling them with this unfair burden of blame. Thus, in spite of everyone's best efforts, I continued to sink lower and lower into the abyss of self-pity and heartache. After that episode of cardiac arrest, I informed my business partner that I was retiring and handed over the entire operation to him to continue running as he saw fit. Since being adopted by them, this family was always my number one priority. Chris frequently joked that while she may have been my girlfriend at first and then my wife later, that my career was always my mistress and her chief rival. She was then quick to add that it better be the only rivals she and the family ever had to contend with, or else, one night while I slept, she'd cut off my... well, you all know where that was going. So, let's just leave it at that and say she threatened to bob at me. To alleviate my spouse's concerns, I'd tell her that since I already had 3 wonderful women in my world, who were more beautiful than life itself, why would I muck up the best affair any hot-blooded man could have been blessed to be involved with, and risk losing it by involving a 4th? And to that she'd erupt in peals of her girlish laughter, then lean in to kiss my always ready to be kissed by her cheek. But now I had all the time in the world on my hands and nothing left to do with it. Chris, how I miss you, my love. If I'm to be perfectly honest, in my duty as a reliable raconteur of this tale, then I must admit I was completely and thoroughly done with time. Since Noika and Anya were still in class that day, and while they were still away, why not just take every single pill I had around this place and drift into that big sleep? Perhaps if there was a thereafter, then I'd awaken to be with Chris again, in that place wherever we all go when we die. At a bit past 1 p.m, I dragged myself up from the bed to begin my pill-gathering suicide mission. It would be my final, fatal last plan. Stuffing every medicine bottle I could find into my pyjama pockets, I then returned to our bedroom. And yes, I still did think of it as our bedroom. To do the deadly deed. It was then that Chris's ghost made its appearance for the very first time. Her apparition was sitting on the side of the bed as if she'd been waiting just for me to make my return. "So, Steve, how are our daughters doing?" Startled by her presence, it took me a tick or two before I replied, "Sassy, sarcastic, full of piss and vinegar, and just as lovely as their ever so magnificent mother, my dear." That laughter, which I believed I'd never hear in this world again, filled our bedroom anew as she rose from our bed and then leaned in toward me to plant one of her wonderful kisses on that always ready to be kissed by her cheek. But before she could, her spirit faded prior to her kiss having found its mark. And that, my friends, was the very first time, but far from the last, that I was paid a brief visit by my deceased darling's ghost. As if in a trance, I returned the pill bottles to where I'd found them. Next I went into the kitchen, opened the freezer, at the top section of our refrigerator to find an unopened tub of Rocky Road ice cream, and removed it. Searching a kitchen drawer for a large spoon, I then took these 2 items back to the bedroom with me to binge on the sugary frozen confection and to ponder the events that had just occurred.